We have the privilege to talk some awesome topics with today's guest, Richard Decker from AWATfit, which you can find more information about AWAT all over 1851 site. Just put it into the search bar. And Keith Hernandez, formerly of the New York Mets and current broadcaster. Thanks, guys, for spending some time with me. Why don't we just kick it off this way? Because I think we need to frame why the two of you are even on this together. Who wants to share the relationship story?
Keith is always a better speaker.
Rich has always been my trainer for, gosh, a long time, well, over a decade.
Yeah, we're at least 10 years.
And I originally, my second wife was working out at Rich's gym in Sag Harbor. And so she kind of turned me on, and I wound up calling Rich, and he was on vacation in, I think, Dominican. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I remember. I called his cell, and when I came up, when the season started, I started working out with him. So that's our connection.
You've had a friendship for quite some time.
Yes.
Love it. So, Keith, let me start off with this question with you. Obviously, Decker has his franchise. It's starting to create some nice momentum. One thing that fascinates me about the investment level, obviously, it's in the under $100,000 range, and for a franchise brand as a business, that would be a brand that most can find financing for. The question that I have for you is, even if you think back to your career, you get done. Did you find that you needed to find something else? And do you find that many athletes, probably their career doesn't go as long as yours did, do you find that they're looking for something else, that perhaps his business could make sense for the retired athlete?
Well, sure. I think particularly for today's athlete, because they're getting paid so much money that, they have the wherewithal to invest, $100,000 or whatever it is, in what Rich has to offer. As far as a guy when I played, I made very good money, but I didn't make the astronomical dollars. It would have been tough for me. But a lot of retired athletes have taken very good care of their finances, and it's a real possibility for my age group as well.
Decker, if you think of a target, do you think a former athlete ends up being a good target for you? Could they perform well in your business model?
Yes. You look at a lot of the former athletes and a lot of the business ventures that they've gone into. They've done gyms before. They have a lot of them go into the restaurant industry, and now we're looking pre and post COVID, for the financial investment and their tie with natural athleticism. It brings in, it's cohesive for them to say, hey, let's get into fitness, the kids in the community, let's introduce fitness into the community, because this is something that's for everybody of every age, with the simplicity and use of what we offer at AWATfit.
Yeah, so Decker, and I'll stay with you on this question, because I do find it fascinating. Majority of athletes, let's go back to just the high school athlete, and let's say they dream of becoming a professional baseball player, professional football player, basketball player someday. Majority of them are not going to make it. Let's say they're good enough to make it into college. They will have a run at their college. They will graduate and now try to figure out, what do I do next? They had a dream of doing something. It's not going to work out. Then you get to the professional athlete, and you're talking about a very fraction of a percentage point of people that even wanted to make it that far, get that far. And let's say you're in a league. NFL is a little bit less than baseball, but let's call it 3 years. You don't make a ton of money over those course of those 3 years, and you finish it, and now you're stuck saying, now what? This typically has been why franchise brands have worked well with an athlete, because majority of them are folks that could not have a career like Keith's, that they get into the league for a while, and now they got to go figure out what to do. That seems to be an area of opportunity as a buyer of this business. Fits perfectly, and the returns that you can obviously see in disclosed franchise disclosure documents, the returns are sound enough to keep your lifestyle going. Does that seem to make sense to you, Decker? Does that create a pathway here as well?
Yeah, you look at the athlete who doesn't have the long career, gets out after 3 or 4 years. the investment is such a low entry point, and the speed of in business, in 30 days they're in business. So they're not dealing with landlords, they're not dealing with the municipalities, the building, the structures and build out and, investing out. They're just saying, hey, let's go, let's invest in a truck. We give them the cookie cutter formula, how to use the truck. We give them all the equipment and they're up and running. They could see the return that I've seen on one truck and already put on my second truck, and they could be multiple franchise owners. Within a year, they could have 4 or 5 trucks running and making a significant, athlete type of salary, without like the astronomical athlete type of salary, but you base, your the roster fill salaries, not the stars. The stars have their other investments they're doing, tequila and everything else that everybody was talking about, but definitely the filler athlete who could go out and make $500,000 to $1 million a year is a great opportunity.
Yeah, and Keith, I'll go to you with this one, because the counter argument to athletes and franchising is, if you go a layer up, and maybe today's athletes, there might be more of these, but someone who is used to be handed everything to them on a silver platter does not typically perform well in franchising, because you do have to have some hustle in the business side. So there have been some athletes that have transitioned into franchising, open up insert restaurant, and the doors closed 2 years later because they assume, based on their name, that people are just going to naturally come in. Does it sound like it's the roster fill? It's someone who has had this maybe category of grit that could perform well in a business like this?
Well, I think it can be advantageous to a star athlete as well. That's made a lot of money. Athletes today, like not in our time, take so much better care of themselves. They're into working out and staying fit. My generation of player now, there's a big emphasis on staying fit. I know a lot of guys I competed against that are staying fit. They're working out, and whether you're a 4-year player, a 6-year player, or a 17 or 20-year player, you still, I think, can market your name, that you are an ex-major leaguer, you're an athlete, and that could resonate with drawing people to come in and do it. And plus, with, like Rich said, with COVID, people, the gyms are starting to open up again, but people aren't too hip about going into gyms with a lot of people. And this, to me, I thought was just a wonderful idea by Rich, where you're working out in the fresh air. And to me, it's much more enjoyable to be out in the environment as opposed to being in an air-conditioned building with tons and maybe hundreds of people, and you have a small group around that truck, as many as you want. It can be 1, it can be 5, it can be 10, and working out together for the hour or whatever. And I just think it's a terrific idea.
Yeah, Rich, let's stay on that topic a little bit. I mean, the reality is you're getting buzz now from the media because it does solve some of the issues around COVID. But the reality is you've been working on this for quite some time. Do you want to give a little bit of the backstory into that too?
Yeah, we started September 18th is when I got out of the brick and mortar gyms and restaurants, what I was mostly involved with, and worked people outdoors. And then come January 19, I started developing the truck because we needed an anchor station. Because during the summer months, people are not going to be happy going into the trails and doing the environmental workout completely because of ticks. It's hot, it's sticky. You want to be out in the fresh air, the fields, the parks, the beaches. So I took the truck, went to my buddy who owns a machine shop, and we fabricated. We're now on the 4th version of the final version of the vehicle, which services anywhere from a one-on-one, like Keith was saying, all the way up to 25 people in a group. All outdoors, all socially distanced, and everything we use is like a porous type material. So an infection like a COVID doesn't have a chance because of the UV rays and the porous material. It's not a hard fixed structure. And then in between each job, we're driving, 30 to 50 miles an hour down the road somewhere else. So it's not like your interior gym surface where if you miss it, this germ or infection, and that's why people are concerned about going inside. I mean, right now, the gym average, I believe they're allowed 30% is up to 7% at a high. And a lot of gyms are closing because the gyms survive on volume. They need the excess volume. They need the people who are joining and not showing up. My truck basically has 0 overhead. So we could have one person doing a one-on-one and we could have 10 people doing the class. Revenue's the same. The expenses stay flatlined. We don't have the municipalities. We don't have the, the electric, your utilities, your landlord, your staffing problems, unless you want to expand into a larger territories and you own more trucks, and then you incorporate staff.
So Keith, take this business model, and I first of all, you guys being friends makes this great, because I'm sure you can give Decker shit about any topic. So if you didn't believe this business was sound, you would probably tell him this is an issue. So I would imagine in your career now and your career then, you get pitched business ideas all day long. How does something like this break into that community through all the clutter of noise of people just constantly pitching your time and your money?
I don't really get pitched a lot, to be honest with you. I've been out of the game for 1991. That's over 20 years. Almost 20 years I've been out of the game. So believe it or not, I do not have a lot of people clamoring for business opportunities. I know a lot of retired athletes that would be in a position to invest, much more so than me. And I think the other thing too is that they can be as hands-on in the investment as they want. It depends. There's a lot of athletes that are still like Paul O'Neill for the Yankees. He still works out like a fiend. He's fit like he can play today, and he works out every day. He can be a part of it, and if he wanted to be hands-on. Or you can be from afar and have people hired that do the work. I mean, whatever, it's your option. So, and I think athletes socially are around people that stay in shape and meet a lot of people. So it's easy to spread the word around for them. It's like free advertisement, So, and also with Twitter and today and what we're doing right now, it's a way you can reach the public where before you had to pay for advertisement, and it's just so much. There's my cat. Sorry. So it's much easier to get the word out, and I think the athlete, the word of the athlete, I think has resonance, has credibility. I mean, if I were to invest in it, I would attach my name to it. That's for sure. It would be my trucks or truck, if I was running it, would identify with me, because I think it'll reach a broader public. There's a lot of people that love sports. I mean, there's sports fans everywhere, and generally, sports fans, I think. I mean, there's a lot of couch potatoes out there, but I think people that like sports, played sports, and are into physical fitness. So it's a perfect marriage right there. Okay,
so Decker, some of the things that Keith is saying, and if Keith is looking at the business as an advisor, and this is where I think some of the things that you're thinking about as the franchisor is smart. You and I have talked about this, that this is not a typical franchise. You don't want people just to buy into your business and pop it up. You want them to make it their own. And Keith is saying, look, if you're going to go after a former athlete, then make sure that they have the ability to put their name associated with the truck. It's a different way of marketing. And I believe you've already crossed that off. And then above that, I mean, as Keith was evaluating the business, he's talking about the passion of fitness or athletes, like that passion part. This is a business that you can actually really be into yourself, as well as have influence on the community. Do you want to make some comments on those?
Yeah, the way we were setting it up and the way it is set up, it's called, instead of a franchise, like you keep mentioning franchise, because that's the terminology that we understand, is we're calling it fran ownership. So we're supplying the truck, we're supplying the equipment, we're supplying suggested workouts for the equipment to use for these workouts. So when people travel state to state and they see a truck, they have the Thunderstruck class. But then we're relying on that specific instructor. Just use the pieces of equipment. We told you how to use it, but use it the way you want to. So this way they're getting Rich Decker here, they're getting Keith if Keith had a truck, or they're getting, Jeff, my new franchisee who's 22, the D1 lacrosse player who's now a franchisee owner at 22 years old, out of college, civil engineer, COVID, lost his job, invested in a franchise. He's an ex-athlete who now, what we're doing with him and what we're going to do with a lot of the colleges when we bring trucks there is the skin of the truck, the colors of the college that you're there training. So this way they feel a personal attachment. The same as like it would be AWATfit _ Keith Hernandez or KHE's your 13, whatever he wanted to do would follow the tagline of AWAT, because we really want them to be Fran owners. We want them, because every trainer, whether you're an athlete or not, is going to have their own methodology of training. You just don't want a cookie cutter. This isn't going to a McDonald's and getting a hamburger. We want it the same way. People want to come and see certain trainers, and they have their favorites and their non-favorite. It goes the same with Soul Cycle and Flywheel. So you want to give the opportunity for the trainer to say, hey, all right, I'm going to use the TRX, but we're going to use it this way because I find it's better for me to communicate. And then when you allow the owner to share their passion on how they exercise, that relates better to the end user, which then relates better to the whole Fran ownership program.
Well, if we circle back to the first question that I asked, is you guys tell me about your relationship. Keith says you were his trainer. Like that, there's some loyalty that's created there. So there is something about the personal brand that's going to have to be a part of this. It's going to be essential to who is the person that's training you, who's building confidence that you can actually accomplish whatever fitness goals you want. I would imagine that loyalty factor, and clearly you guys are talking here years later, I would imagine, Keith, that's part of it. Decker built loyalty with you, and him being your trainer that equaled friendship down the line, which means now you do anything for the guy, including sitting on this thing and talking about business with us.
Was that question directed at me or Rich?
Yeah, you, Keith.
Well, I just think it's like I said, I just think it's a wonderful idea, a wonderful chance. There are people that could have the money to invest, and obviously there's risk in anything you do. But I think this business model is, I think it's pretty good shape. If you want to just if you run it properly, you got a chance to to make money on the deal. So it's not something that I would want to do. I'm kind of at the point in my life where I'm doing baseball games. I announce for the Mets. I'm pretty busy with that. During the season, I don't have a lot of time. So during baseball season, I would not be able to oversee what I got going on. And then I have my 6 months off, which I could pay more attention to, which is what the athletes are. They have the little period where they're busy and they're playing, and then they're off. And the active player today, trust me, is staying in shape. For the next season, and that is one thing that has changed. So it's a great way. I've worked out with Rich. Rich works out all day. Rich is in great shape because he's in the darn truck working out people all day. So what better way to stay in shape if you're an active player, number one, and and if you're an inactive player and we all want to live a long life and you got to stay in shape, keep the heart pumping. You can get involved as much as you want, or you can just stay completely away from it and do your own workout on your side and have other people handle it. So there's options. I don't think I answered the question, but
you get feedback. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That question though. So it's a good question because Keith and I have been together for 10 years. I have clients I've trained 20 years. So you get a loyalty, you get a friendship, you do for each other. But then Keith has the same relationship because he's off. I got him for 6 months. He has an off season. He goes to Florida. He's got a great trainer in Florida. Keith connects us to, hey, you guys talk to each other so you know what you're doing and you're doing. His body, his physical circumstances, his, athlete, non-athlete concerns about his body. But as soon as he goes to Florida, he contacts his guy there. As soon as he comes here, he contacts me. That's the loyalty when you have, because it's a relationship we build. And the same way that relationship needs to trickle down from franchisor to franchise owners. They need to have that loyalty from me so I could guide them like I do with Jeff every day. We're texting email every day how we could get business, attain business, retain business, and hook them up with people like you just to, the loyalty needs to spread not only between the consumer to the client, but also from the franchisor with everybody that's underneath, because that's why I have the 40 years experience in the fitness industry, is to lend it to these younger guys coming up, right?
So I think it's all part of networking too. Like what Rich is saying. I mean, every business networks. You reach out and you develop your partnerships and your loyalties, your friendships, and you all feed off of each other, help each other.
In both of your careers right now, you've reached this commonplace with COVID of there's a lot of unknowns. Keith, you just went through this with a weird baseball season that for the New York Mets has concluded, and Decker, you're going through it on the fitness side. That is a complete disruption that you're on the forefront of, but you're still dealing with an unknown disease that it's hard to deal with. I would love both of your perspectives on how has this year been mentally for you. How are you navigating it, and what do you guys each see in the different front lines that you guys service? Keith, you want to go first?
Okay. Well, the season obviously was a completely disrupted. We were informed around the middle of spring training that the season was postponed indefinitely. So everything shut down. So fortunately, I still got paid by the network. Didn't have a direct financial impact on me like it had to most people out there that really were suffering and struggling. When the season started, we were not allowed any kind of contact with the players. In the clubhouse, on the field, we're not allowed. That goes for the press too. We broadcasted all the games without fans, obviously, everybody knows that. And we were not allowed on the road. So we had to broadcast road games at the ballpark in our booth, and we had the social distance in our booth. So there's three of us, Gary, Ron, and myself. Ronnie and I took the visiting team broadcast team's booth next to home team, where Gary had that because you couldn't get three people in the same booth and be socially distanced. The difficult part was on the road games, there is an empty field in front of us. And we each had a monitor, which is the monitor of the game that the people are watching at home. And then we had a big monitor in between us that was an overview of the field because we had to see where the players were. There was no players on the field. Now, I'm just the analyst, so I'm just reacting to the play and giving my professional opinion, but Gary Cohen, our play-by-play guy, had to make instantaneous calls. So he really was difficult for him, which he adapted to beautifully. But he had to watch the game, and then when the ball was hit contact, if it's a fly ball, he doesn't know how hard it's hit, how far it's going to go. We had to go to the big monitor in front of him and see how the players are running around. They had the whole overview and see where the outfielders were going to know how deep the ball was hit. We were on the road. We were not allowed to have our production team, so we had to rely on the home team production. It was their feed.
Yeah.
So normally when I'm talking in a game and I'm talking about Rich, Decker, he's 4 for 4 today. Our director will go right on Rich because we're talking about Rich. Well, we're talking about one of our players, and their camera is on Freddie Freeman. It's it's not in sync. So we had to constantly remind our fan base that this is not our broadcast. We got the home field broadcast, and a lot of times we wanted replays we couldn't get. We had no control over the cameras. So it was very, very strange. A lot of injuries, getting back to the physicality of the game, no matter what the players did in the off season and during the break, they come in shape for spring training, but you need spring training. You need to play 9 innings over a period of time to build up stamina, to be out there standing around for a 3-hour and a half game today, which it is today, which is even more difficult on the players. So they didn't have that. They had a very short period when they decided to play, which was the end of July, excuse me. They had around 2 weeks. That's not enough time to get ready. We knew that there were going to be a lot of leg injuries. And there were. There were a lot of muscle pulls. And it's just because they just didn't have, it just goes to show, no matter what kind of shape you're in, in a sport, you have to build up playing that, actually being out there physically doing it, which is not lifting weights and on a bike or running, cross country. It's out there playing the game. It's a whole different ball of wax. And so a lot of players got hurt. There was an expanded roster. There was a lot of AAA players that played. It was not a good product out there, but it got through. And I really think that it's what the country needed. The country was going bonkers. Everybody in lockdown, sports. And I think it was very healthy that people, those that wanted to watch at least, I mean, our ratings weren't great. But for those people that did watch, I think that's what sports is. Sports is a diversion. That's what it should be. So it was an interesting year.
And before I go to Decker, Keith, how are you handling it mentally on yourself or personally? Does COVID stress you out? Does it concern you?
No, it doesn't. But I'm careful. I get pneumonia. I have a tendency to get pneumonia, and I had real bad sinus as a kid. I played Pop Warner football, and I broke my nose. And when I broke my nose in Pop Warner, I had bad sinus most of my life, my career. So I had surgery after I retired, and they kind of opened up my passage. So now I was like 2000. I never got a chest inflammation. Or chest was always in my sinuses for a week. Well, now I don't get sinus. It goes into my lungs, and I've had pneumonia 3 times since 2000. So that was a big concern of mine, COVID-wise, because it attacks the lungs. So, I mean, I was in lockdown. You couldn't do anything. Restaurants were closed for 2 months in Florida. You couldn't even order in. I bought an extra refrigerator to cook. And then now when I go out, I wear a mask when I go out, but not in my car when I'm alone. Not when I'm walking the streets. Got to breathe the fresh air. But out of respect for others and for my personal safety, when I go in a place of business, I wear the mask, and that's all there is to it. The last thing I want is COVID. Trust me.
I appreciate that. Decker, same question to you personally and business-wise. How have you handled this?
Well, it's been an interesting time for me because right after COVID started in May 28th, I had a child. I had a baby girl. So now you bring a newborn, which is always tricky with germs and everything in the beginning anyway. Now you have COVID and family couldn't come to the hospital. Family can't see the baby. Keith's seen the baby a couple times on my deck, but you got to maintain distancing because you got to be concerned about their immune system, and it's just different, right? And now I'm going out every day and I'm training people. So I need to be cautious because I don't want to come home. My clients are younger and they're older, but this is in the beginning. I think I only took 2 weeks off when COVID was first announced and the lockdown, just out of respect to the authorities, because we were still allowed to operate our business because we weren't essential and not essential, but we were outdoors, so we were considered safe. We would be right next to code enforcers, right next to police enforcement. And they're like, as long as you keep social distance, you stay outside, you have your disinfectant wipes, you're doing the right thing, Decker, keep working out. But what I saw was the people. In the beginning, it was like, this is no big deal. But as the time went on, you could see their energy shift, their depression shift, their lockdown and not going out, socializing, seeing any of their friends, doing anything after the workout. It was wearing on a lot of people. Finally, when the restrictions lifted a little bit and you were able to go to restaurants and socialize a little and get to stores and do things, they relaxed. But there was a while there a lot of people were at like their breaking point. It was very emotional workouts with a lot of clients, because I'm going mostly now to private clients. This is in the beginning, because even in the beginning of COVID or halfway through, people wouldn't work out with each other if they didn't know each other. Now they're comfortable enough knowing they're outside, there's enough distance, they'll do a class knowing this, this. But in the beginning, if I don't know you and know where you've been, it was strange, even when you walk into stores or you try and say hello to people. And on a business aspect, my business basically quadrupled. We were the only thing servicing people in the fitness arena. We already had the franchising process in the works. And it's continuing to grow. And now with gyms opening, a lot of the ones that have opened have already either gone chapter 7 or chapter 11 because they're not going to survive this. So it's a constant, keep your eye on it, maintain the caution and prevention, that's out there. Like he said, when you're alone or outdoors, you don't wear the mask. You need the fresh air. You need to build immunity. But when you're around other people for your safety of yourself and of them, because some people, you don't know you have it, right? So you want to make sure if you do have, you're one of those people that have the underlying symptoms, you're not giving it to somebody. And, knock on wood, everybody's been healthy and great. My whole entire family. I have a 92-year-old mother. She comes over and sees the baby because she had to wait almost 2 months before she could see a grandchild. But now she could see her every day because it's the same. You didn't want either one sick because they're both in the the high end. And it's the way. Times are never going back, and we're not going back to normal. We're in a transformation period. We have to recreate the new normal. What is business? What is sports going to be like going forward? What are these large arenas going to be like? Pre-vaccine, post-vaccine. We're all traveling every day in the unknown. So you make the best out of each day, and you stay healthy and take care of yourself. Because the most people who fell ill to this were unhealthy. They had not only their underlying conditions, they were obese, they were out of shape, they weren't working out. The healthy people, it kind of just runs through pretty quickly as like a badass cold or flu, So I think that's another plus to the business I'm doing now, because more people are aware they have to stay in shape, but they don't have gyms to turn to. So the opportunity for me and what I'm doing, they say preparation and luck when they collide is a very good chance of success, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, I appreciate both those viewpoints from you guys. Obviously, we're still in unknown waters. We don't know what happens in this fourth quarter with the virus. We have a presidential election that adds a little bit more complexity to this. So from business and sports standpoint, there are still unknowns. We don't know how next year is going to look. But Decker, I think your statement of you figure this out, like you reconfigure the way that you look at life and business and sports, and that's what it is. What it is. As long as we have a breath in this world left, then we're going to deal with it, right?
As long as you're alive, you have the ability to thrive. Other than that, you don't.
Yeah, I could listen to you and your lines all day long. I'm sure you and Keith have plenty of these fancy lines that you both have. You and broadcast, Keith, and Decker, you just period. That's your personality. Anything in closing? Anything you want to add, Decker, before we sign off?
No, I appreciate Keith coming on and lending sense. I do believe this is a natural fit for ex-athletes. I believe it's a natural fit for the ex-restaurant managers that are out there who are fitness-minded, but unfortunately their jobs are no longer existing. We're doing private PE classes now, so gym teachers are coming on board as franchisees because they can't teach PE in school anymore. Until this is over, and these people need to make a livelihood.
And Keith, anything in closing?
I'll have one little baseball term for you. You can't make a club while sitting in the tub.
There you go.
There you go. We needed it. A good close. Keith Hernandez, Richard Decker, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Nick Powills. Appreciate the stories, and I wish you both the best of luck as we continue to navigate whatever happens next. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.